Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us this week. Of course, what will be another informative week. It's the first Friday in July, so I say welcome to July, everyone. On today's program, of course, a packed program as usual, as I did promise you that I'm sitting down with the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mrs. Sandra Granger. This is the first time I'm being given the opportunity to do a live interview with her, so you'll learn a little more about Sandra Granger today, and of course her hopes, her aspirations, and what it is exactly that she plans to do for Guyana during her tenure as First Lady. Also coming up on the program, as you know, at the beginning of each month, our pensioners line up at various post offices across the country. Recently, our Minister of Social Protection, Mrs. Valda Lawrence, paid a visit to one of those post offices, and she did some chatting with some of the pensioners there. She even she spoke with persons at the post office staff members, telling them about the need to treat our senior citizens with respect, even when they have to line up to get their pension. And she also talked to them about some of the plans that her ministry has in store for Guyana's senior citizens. So you'll be seeing a clip of that exercise that took place earlier in this week. And also, I'll be chatting with Mr. Oscar Clarke. He is the General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. And the reason I'm talking with him, not only is he a political veteran, but he's an awardee. Of course, as you know, in 2015, that's on the 26th of May, Independence Day, His Excellency President David Granger did award several citizens of our republic, and Mr. Oscar Clarke is one of those awardees. Of course, he holds the Classic Crown of Honor Award. So you'll be hearing all about him, his excitement about that, and his previous works in politics and other activities, including as one of the persons sitting on the board, the councillors of the Georgetown Mayor and City Council. But for now, let's get to my interview with the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mrs. Sandra Granger. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Malika. Thank you for having me here.
All right.
I hope I can fulfill your expectations.
Yes, you you always do. You always do. Of course, you are now not only our First Lady, but many young women across our country, across this great nation, will look up to you and expect you to be a role model, which to my mind you already are. I'm honored to say that I have known the First Lady even before she became a First Lady. So I can tell you it's a very good role model that you're getting. But before we even talk about that, Sandra Granger, during 2011, Guyana got a dose of you. We learned about Sandra Granger, who Sandra Granger is. But it seems that you have, in a sense, blossomed or been thrown into the limelight during the 2015 elections. Would you say that it is politics and publicity? It's something that you had to take some time to groove into?
Well, I don't think it's something you can ever become accustomed to. I never envisioned the political life for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are half right in respect of your comment on being more, what shall I
Prominent.
say, in the background in the 2011 campaign. But I was asked to do much more in the 2015 campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And where I was asked to introduce my husband at different rallies throughout the region, and I traveled with him,
Mm-hmm.
which was very useful for me. I have been in the interior of the country, but I think when you travel within Guyana and you go to the hinterland and rural areas, you begin to understand not only the vastness and beauty of the country, you understand how the people on the ground live and what are the challenges they face.
Mm-hmm.
And to really understand that problems in Georgetown might not necessarily be a problem in Camarang or in Siparuta or anywhere else.
During your travels with His Excellency, what are some of the most main things, or I should say the main thing that jumped out of you in terms of things that I can do as First Lady to address this issue or these issues?
Well, as you were talking before this, I told you there were several things because there are so many social issues that need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things in the interior locations that struck me was joblessness for youth, among youth, and also the issue of child prostitution and trafficking in persons. And I spent some time with Minister Simona Brooms, and she really told me a lot about her experiences. And as a mother and a woman, I could not help but be moved by this kind of activity taking place in Guyana. And in some areas, and this was not from Simone, it was from somebody else, the families send the children to prostitute them, the girl children to be prostituted in the mining camps. How do we address? And that is purely for economic reasons in terms of the families. So that ties into another interest I have, which is the incidence of adolescent pregnancy.
Okay.
As we were speaking before, I mentioned to you that the Caribbean has the second highest level of adolescent pregnancy in the world, second only to sub-Saharan Africa. And it distresses me that 25% of our girls under 19 give birth, have their first delivery before 19, of which 1% are under 15 years old. So those are issues where when you know that a child who is 15 is not prepared for motherhood, will have health and other issues related to that pregnancy, can no way support the child. How do we address things like that? And how do we empower our girls and women to achieve their full potential?
Indeed, two things that should touch not only mothers, but should touch every woman indeed: teenage pregnancy and, of course, trafficking in persons, or in some cases, child prostitution. How easy or how difficult do you believe that your task would be to address this? And do you believe that you will get the support of not only the women in the PNCR and the women in APNU and the women in the government, but our ministers, mainly the Minister of Social Protection and the minister within the Ministry of Social Protection?
Well, I think they are both on board. I've heard them speak. I've spoken to them. And I would like to sit with them at some stage and understand what programs they have and what projects they have. But on the issue of teenage pregnancy, I know UNFPA is very involved in it, because they invited me to participate in a First Ladies Roundtable in Belize just last week, where the issue was raised and how we would address this issue in our various countries and at a regional level, how we would seek funding and move forward with it, to see how we can publicize among our young people, both in and out of school. One of the projects for UNFPA's funding in Guyana is in association with other bodies is a media campaign. And the issue is, how do we get young people, especially those out of school, to buy into this issue of not having children. And then we go into the other social issue of molestation and incest and all those other things, which people are very hesitant to discuss, because they tend to believe, oh, it's poor people, but it doesn't. It occurs across the social spectrum. So you have to have a concerted campaign, I think. Minister George Norton, because he also was talking about social issues in the hinterland communities with me when we were on the campaign trail. And I think if we have a concerted effort governmentally, and I am not speaking on behalf of the government, let me underline that, but I'm thinking if the education, social protection, health ministries got together, they can do something and create an environment where the matter of adolescent pregnancy and abuse, sexual abuse of children, could be taught at various levels in the schools, could be publicized. I was also invited to a stakeholder workshop on Monday when I came home. Monday, that was held in Guyana, organized by the Ministry of Health, with UNFPA support. And it was very interesting to listen to the experiences of the NGOs involved in assisting adolescent mothers, and to listen to the ministries and what they have in place. But the big issue is data collection and analysis. I think we suffer from a lack of that kind of information. And one of the proposals coming out of Belize is that we start thinking in the regional censuses, when we do our regional census, we start to disaggregate data because we want to ask questions. If you had a child, or we ask our people, how old were you when you had your first sexual encounter?
Mm-hmm.
And we start from under 10, 10 to 15, and then we move to 15 to 19. It will raise a lot of blood pressure some places, but I think it's something, if we don't address it frontally, we will continue to have these problems.
All right. Before we take a break, and a lot said, a lot to digest indeed. Before we take a break from some of the serious issues that you're interested in, I know during the 2015 regional and general elections campaign, one of the things that you were very passionate about is the fact that we have so many items that there is the value-added tax on it. And of course, you had interest in that because of the high rate of poverty in our country. Do you plan to make a focus on poverty as one of your top priorities as you go on to do your work as First Lady?
Well, the thing is, as I said, all these things are interrelated. If we don't have uneducated people or undereducated people, they will be poor. If we have adolescent mothers who have to drop out of school, who, some of them, I met a young lady who got her first child at 14. She was almost in tears. She said the fella came back, the young man came back, and he sweet talked her, so she got another one at 17. She is illiterate, and she said, I cannot do anything. Her job at the time was washing pans in a bakery. This was a young Belizean girl. And she said it hurt her to know that she could not help her children. You know, and it's really looking at something like that. And for me, education is a route out of poverty, and people have to value education, not just a quick dollar, but to see education as a means to prosperity and progress. Also, we have to look at how our young men are socialized, the language that they use when they speak about young women, regardless of how the young lady might behave, because
they will use that as an excuse.
Yes. So you have to say, how do we speak to each other? How do we educate our people and show them that if you work, you educate yourself, there are many routes open to you, and they can learn from there. Poverty is pervasive throughout this country. So we have to see how can people improve their lot economically and socially by doing things within their regions to help themselves and to help their families. As I said, I don't want to step on any toes, and I would like to, at some stage, sit with the minister responsible for social protection, Ms. Lawrence, and Dr. Norton, and see how we could find out what they're doing and see how we could help.
Bring everything together. All right. To take a break from the very serious issues, how have you thus far settled in as First Lady? How are you settling? Because I mean, it's no longer an everyday thing. I know your schedule is busy. I can remember calling you, and you even made a joke about you have to check your schedule. But how have you settled in as First Lady?
Well, I don't know if it's something you can settle into. Because it's a different life for me. As I told someone, I said I had planned my retirement and gotten rid of all my suits and jackets and stuff. So I have to start rethinking my wardrobe. I told my children I'm not wearing hairspray again, but I had to go and buy hairspray and that sort of thing. But it is very interesting to me. I still like to go out and do a little shopping and talk to people, especially the people who I've known over the years, going about my domestic chores, as it were. It's interesting because people have views which are important to them, and many of them are important to the country. And they would ask me questions. I'd say, well, look, I don't know, but I could find out and let you know. I also have to be very conscious of what I say, how I dress, and so on. And hopefully my life would have brought me to a point where I don't think I would unwittingly make a faux pas in terms of how I dress. But I do know that, some people have said, okay, she's wearing sleeveless dresses. So as you notice, I was very conscious of that, and I brought my jacket to wear today.
Well, I am happy that you talked about dressing, talked about being mindful of what you say and how you dressed and so on. That brings me to the point. The fact is, we live in a cruel world these days when it comes to criticisms, especially the world of social media. Unfortunately, our immediate past First Lady, she was one of the persons subjected to some of the cruelty coming from social media. Have you had any attacks that you have been briefed on, or in terms of verbal attacks, especially via social media? And if not, if you do eventually get them, not necessarily only attacks, but the criticisms, how do you plan to deal with that?
Well, I think let me first start by saying that I think a lot of young people are very vulnerable because they put their lives out on the line, not realizing that these things come back to haunt them. I have tried to tell my grandchildren, be very careful what you put on social media, because you don't know where it will be forwarded and it doesn't go away. For myself, I have always been someone who, maybe because I grew up in the age of women's empowerment and feminism, I feel I don't have to depend on other people to estimate my value as a person. So it is really not something that wounds me.
Okay.
Most of the time, I have not been criticized on social media, I think, for anything I have said or worn. But I do think, I can handle it because of my age. I'm long in the tooth, so to speak. So I am not going to be hurt by these things as a younger person would. Also, a lot of younger people accept anybody who requests to be a friend, because there's this idea that if you have 1,02,749 friends, you're a popular person. And that is not it. That is making yourself more vulnerable. So you need to be very careful about who you accept as a friend. I have had requests for friends. If I don't know the person, I don't accept, because I said, for me, friendship is a very meaningful thing, right? And I don't think it would upset me. It might annoy me, but it wouldn't upset me.
Okay.
Right? Because I have a focus, and my mother would tell you I'm a very own way child. So I have always been that since I was small, so it's not going to be a big issue for me.
How do you deal with attacks on His Excellency? Of course, even before he became president himself, he would have been subjected to several attacks. I'm not even going to repeat some of them. How does Sandra Granger deal with that? How would you possibly, if he comes home and he's probably upset about it, which is highly unlikely because I know these things roll off his back, but how do you deal with it?
No, I always go back to say, let us look at the truth. He has had attacks, as you know, on things which he could not have done and which have been repeated ad nauseam by a certain section of the community. And I am saying, get a life. Find facts. If you want to debate somebody, come with information that is valid, because you're not helping yourself and you're not helping the people who you want to influence. I've heard them talk about my husband not wearing ties. I'm saying, I know how he lives. When he started, he was leaving for work at 7:50. Now he leaves before 7 in the morning. He is focusing on getting the job done. And I think most of the ministers of government have jumped in and really had to start running. Most of the ministers in the new cabinet and the government have had to really run, because so many crises have erupted and so many things have to be watched at and taken care of in the immediate term. There are many other things happening. I think David Granger can handle himself, right? I think he's a strong person. I think he has more energy than many people younger than he has. I know he gets tired. Of course he will get tired. He's a human being. But at some point, I would say, let him do the job. If he's failing at the job, but he's there. He has advisors. And he's not a person who will just jump up and do something off the top of his head. He listens to the people around him who advise, the qualified people to advise him.
Okay.
And 20,000 people on social media may not always have the best advice, or they might not always be coming to a decision in an altruistic manner. There might be another axe to grind underneath it. And I follow social media, and it heartened me to see when people are talking and criticizing his dress, people are saying, let the man do his job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's working as a president of a hot country. Why should he be wearing a tie? You know, he has many ties. I can tell you that he has six, but it's just when he feels he should wear them, you know.
You have 2 children, Madam First Lady, and grandchildren.
Uh-huh.
How has this new, if you want to call it new lifestyle, affected them, and what the support coming from them has been like thus far?
Well, my children have always been supportive because we have been a close family throughout. We always took time to spend with our children as they were growing up. Weekends, especially when my husband was home, in those days, we could go in the national park and the promenade gardens and botanical gardens to picnic and take them after lunch and so on. They're very supportive, and they know and understand their father. My grandchildren are also, you know, a bit conscious of the fact that people are looking at them as the grandchildren of the president rather than who they are, especially the older ones. I have to say, my younger granddaughter, who is just 3, was very upset one day. This is before the elections, when she saw a young lady with some posters with her grandfather. She said, "Mommy, where is she going with Grandpa's picture? That's my grandfather." And she was really very upset. So her mother had to say, "Please, it's a campaign. They need to put up the picture and so on." And I think we keep each other grounded, right? So it's not. I don't think they would be too different. And you will know that my children are well past teenage
Yes, ma'am.
years, so they're women in their own right.
All right. Mm-hmm. Now, Sandra Granger is not only the First Lady, but you have automatically become a role model for many of our girls and women in society. Before we even talk about your role as a role model, who were some of your role models growing up?
I had some very good teachers who influenced and guided me. There was one teacher who shepherded me through common entrance, and I was trying to find out where she might be, because as I grew up, she never passed me on the street, and that was Miss Bridget Archer from Sacred Heart School. I don't know where she is now. My mom says she used to see her as well. I had some very good guidance. You may have heard that I was educated by the Mercy nuns, and they were, in a sense, I think they shaped my character and helped me to be a person in my own right. My mother, I think, I see as a real heroine, because she lost her mother when she was 6, had to go out to work at 12, and she always pushed us for education and made sacrifices for us. Encouraged us to try anything that we wanted to. You know, she said, try it, at least you'll know whether you want to or not. And to this day, she's still strong. I mean, older person now, not as physically capable as she used to be, but mentally, she's very much alert and supportive of her children and grandchildren and great-grands. So I would think those are my main people. I also had a boss who was a very good mentor. Mm-hmm. That was Dr. Carla Barnett at the Secretariat. She was my boss when she was Deputy Secretary General. I also had some good friends and colleagues who were always there, not many, but who would be there to bolster me when I was feeling down, or tell me when they thought I was doing nonsense, you know, and always very supportive. Ann Simpson and Sheila Chan, and we still try to meet every month, even though we have retired. Unfortunately, I lost one of those friends who collapsed on the job and died. That was Yvonne Holder. But we just used to every month, just get away and go and solve all the problems of the region and have lunch. And in those days, a few drinks and go back to work and deal with it. But, I mean, they were very good in the sense that there was no pressure and there was a lot of support. And we shared the same views. So I think I had quite a few. And, of course, I still have a few very good friends who I don't have to blink about. I know they will be there for me, just as they know that anything happens, I will be there for them. And if something happens to me and I don't call them, I will get an outright abusing if I don't.
If you don't.
Those are my people.
Sandra Granger, First Lady, it has certainly been a pleasure. I have to begin to wrap up, but before I even do that, earlier you talked about your interest in addressing the issue of trafficking in persons, your interest in addressing the issue of teenage pregnancy. As one of Guyana's most prominent female role models at this point, aside from those things that you a frightening thought, eh? Yes, I understand. Aside from the things that you would have addressed earlier, what would you like to see for our women and girls in our society?
I would like to see our women be strong, and a strength that comes through knowledge of self, self-confidence, that you will get through education and knowing your role in society. It might not be a traditional role, but to be able to say, this is what I feel I am good at, and I will do it. I'm also working in trying to do some work in communities to see how we can get the youth involved, and I am also concerned about inclusion of our older citizens. Sorry, the senior citizens. I have to be politically correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And seeing how we can bring the needs of our youth and the skills and experience of our senior people together, and see how we can make our communities and villages more viable again. It's not something I said. I don't want to get up and proclaim about it. It's something I want to see how it works and see how I can assist the process and how we can use it as a model to move and take it throughout the country at some stage. But right now I just want to do it in small steps, but sure steps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Malika.
Madam First Lady.
Thank
and
you very much.
You've certainly you got rid of the myth that's in some people's head that being a First Lady is all about gardening and flowers and so on. You're the worst person for that.
I'm a left-hander, and my family criticized me every time I picked up a needle because they were into crochet and tatting and all these fancy things, and I really
You never got the hang of it.
No, they said I looked awkward, and that. And gardening, one of my aunts said I was the only member of the family without a green thumb, but I want to do some kitchen gardening. I really do.
Eventually.
Soon.
Thank you very much for being here with us, Madam First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Of course, viewers, this is where I have to say goodbye to the Madam First Lady for now and take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be chatting with the General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. So take a look at this clip with the Minister of Social Protection, and I'll come right back with you. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Given me the task to take care of you, and I'm very, very happy to do so. So today I am going around to several post offices so that I can see what you go through, and there's definitely some changes will have to be made. But before we make that change, we don't want to sit in the office and make the change, right? We got to get on the ground and see what's happening, what you're experiencing, and at the same time what the staff of the post office is experiencing, so that we can make informed decisions. I cannot tell you what we're going to do now. As I said, this is an inquiry stage that I'm at. And so we will work towards bettering this condition of how you receive your pension. And just before I left the Amstel, a young man asked me whether you're going to get anything else. And I can assure you on behalf of the president that he's a man who keeps his promises, that you will be getting something, all right? You will be getting something. But more than that, we want to ensure that all of the facilities from which you have to get your service, the post office where you're getting your pension, the health center where you have to go so that our people can take care of you, ensure that you have your medication, ensure that you get the right medication, ensure that if you have to go to the hospital, that you're being treated as one of our prime category of people, because that is how I see you and that's how we see you. All right? So those are the things we're going to look at. One of the things we want to look at also is service. The type of service that is meted out to you. That people don't just see you as some old woman and old man, right? But they see you as a Guyanese and somebody to whom they must provide a service to. All right? And we want you to do a few things for us. You have a lot of experience, you have a lot of wisdom. And I'm asking you, I know the children bad. I know the ears hard, they don't listen. They like to do their own things. But I'm going to ask you, do not stop telling them about living a good life, about doing the right things, about having high moral standing, all right? And don't stop telling them about God, all right? Because without Him, we are nothing. And you have to keep passing that on to them. Wherever you go, don't be afraid to tell them. Sometimes they play, they don't listen. But they really do listen, you know. But you know, they got to put on this macho thing, you know, this big girl thing. They know what she's telling me and all of that. But I'm going to ask you to hold strong and pass those experiences on to our younger generation. All right? Because someday they will have to service me. All right? So I want to ensure that we make Guyana a better place. Mr. John Adams, right? Sir Adams, and I can say this to you from Region 3, he doesn't let my ears rest. He's always bringing your issues to me. And so I want to thank God for him, right? And I want you to thank God for him so he could continue to represent your interests. Thank you. However, let me assure you that whatever decision is taken, it's not one to put you guys out of work, all right? But we cannot treat our seniors like this, you know? I mean, if here is filled, it's a small room, then they're outside, right? Yeah. To all the elements. They have all sorts of ailments, but they're here, and the reason why they're here is because they need that little money. They need it. I was at the Amstel and Lenora, money there late. Can't continue.
What would have happened, Malika, in closure the day before? Money should be at the office to start payment for the next day. But for security purpose and security risks, we would leave just a small amount for those persons who would go early in the morning. But we had put out advisory in the news advising persons not to go too early to the post office to collect the payment. Let them go for like 8:39, but we would find persons would be there from
But the payment went near at 10:25 at the Amstel.
Yeah, because we had to do payment from the bank across here because we don't want one set of money, like a large amount of money, just moving from one place to go to the other. For instance, with the
Gotta find better solution to that. Okay. If you tell me to come here for 7 o'clock, then when I come here at 7 o'clock, I expect you to be ready to service me. You understand me? So all that you're telling me, I do understand, but that's not how business is done. If you say I must come for 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, when I come you must be ready to do business. the PO there acting was able to complete 24 payments prior to the money arriving. But that was very early because when she got there, people were there, and so she surfaced those persons with what she had. But then you have this big gap now. You gotta wait. There is no bathroom facility, there is no water. They're going around like if they play soccer, tennis. These are all people in the same system that you have here. So I don't know who think of the system. Whether the post office has the mechanism to ensure that they provide a quick and efficient service to you. Because one of the things I do not appreciate is you sitting around and going around and standing outside, and you don't have washroom facilities, you don't have some water. Those are things that concern me. And so we want to sit and to review what is happening so that when we make our recommendations, we don't make the recommendations based on what people tell us, but on what we see for ourselves. All right? And I just want you to know that you mean a lot to Guyana. You can't have a country with share young people, right? You have to have the seniors who have the experience and the knowledge that they can pass it on to the juniors. And that is how our country is going to grow. Somebody asked about money. Yes, the president is going to take care of you in the next budget. So you don't have to worry. That's very soon. You'll be having your nice little parcel coming to you too. So I want you to take care, and I want you to trust that we will be able to find solutions to your issues. Okay?
I'd like to say one thing.
Yes, sir.
On the pension day, if the won't tell us,
More tell us.
people line up from here, we up to the road. Till up there, you know what I mean? So if we can get more tellers, at least 2 more on pension day to clear the crowd.
So the process can go quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from Swanton. I'm an old staff of the Guyana Post Office Corporation. I work at Wells Charleston and at GPU. Right now I'm home taking care of my mom. But the problem that I normally get when the mom come to collect my mom old age pension and NIS is when you come, sometimes come the money is not here, you have to wait a long time for the money to come. I know in my old time days when I was working at Wells Charleston and GPO, money used to be here early. When you come 7 o'clock, by the 7:30 you're getting your money, by the 8 o'clock you go on home, you cook and clean and continue your homework. But now you come, by the time you get home, the day finished. But when the money do come, I could talk about this post office because I normally come here. They start working very quick. And the police officers that just be around, they're doing a very good job. But the problem is, I think the money should start coming back early, like old time days.
This is Facing the Nation. What you were viewing there was a clip of the Minister of Social Protection, Mrs. Walda Lawrence, as she mixed and mingled with some of our senior citizens as they prepare to collect their monthly pension. Also, if you're now joining us, you've missed a really wonderful presentation coming from the First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mrs. Sandra Granger. I had her on first and we spoke. Now it's time for you to hear from the General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform, Mr. Oscar Clarke, who is also one of the recipients of the CCH. Of course, CCH is the Cacique's Crown of Honor Award, one of Guyana's national awards. Welcome to you, Mr. Oscar Clarke. Of course, we all call him GS. So if yours, forgive me if between the interview I end up saying GS. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika.
All right, great to have you. Viewers, I should also tell you, I was just getting some information. This year marks 51 years since Mr. Oscar Clarke has been involved in public life, and he was one of our very young members of parliament. Of course, that would have been years ago. First off, GS, how do you feel that becoming a national awardee is an added achievement, and would you have done anything in your life differently that thus far that would have led up to you receiving that award?
Malika, I think that this is a great honor. It's been an honor to have been identified by our president for this award, and I'm extremely grateful to him for recognizing the years that I've spent in public life. As you pointed out, it's 51 years in public life. I started out as an MP in the 1964 coalition government, Burnham-Bigar government, and I was an MP then, and immediately I was appointed parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Education and Race Relations, as it was then. My senior minister, Minister Winifred Gaskin. So under Winifred Gaskin, I was our parliamentary secretary, and she gave me the responsibilities for youth and sport. So I started out my career in public life as a member of parliament and minister and a parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Education.
Cheers, do you believe that life is so significantly different now? Because, and I'm asking too, we've heard the sentiments, and I've asked most of my guests on since our new government would have ascended to office. Do you believe that your life as a young MP was very different from what's happening now? Because we heard an upcry from most of the young people in the nation that, look, we didn't see many young people ascending to the higher levels of government. What was different from your time to now? Because you were a member of parliament at 26, and viewers, I should also tell you that he also briefed me. He was the Minister of Home Affairs at 32. What was different now?
There's a lot of difference between then and now. The most important difference, I think, is that young people at that time were not so much into politics. You know, now too, we have a similar phenomenon now. They're not very much into politics, serious politics. In those days, we were members of youth clubs, and we were serious members of youth clubs. In fact, when Mr. Burnham invited a number of us to form the first youth organization of the People's National Congress, which is the People's National Congress Youth Organization, PNCYO. We were all members of youth clubs, and we got together at his invitation, coming from various youth clubs. But we were all serious members of youth clubs. But he says that being members of youth clubs was not enough. You had to get into the political sphere, because, you know, young people needed to get involved in politics for the future of the country. And it is that call from him that, you know, brought us together in the PNCYO. We met with him on several occasions each week. We used to meet at his office, his office, his attorney, his lawyer's office on Manjet Place in Stabroek there. And he would discuss with us various issues and ask our opinions, and we would give him our opinions and so on. And he would eventually have us leave with his view. But he would say it is not his view. If we accepted it, it became our view, and we must go and propagate it.
Okay.
So, we went out as his ambassadors, having had these discussions with him, and over time, he encouraged us to form a political youth organization of the party, which we formed.
Okay.
So the first Congress of the PNCYO was held in 1960 at the LCP Hall, then called LCP Hall in 3rd Street, Alberton.
Okay.
We had the first Congress, and I was at that Congress. I was elected a junior vice chairman. Mr. Winston Bentham was the chairman, elected chairman, and they had a number of other people. Then you had a number of women too, young women who were associated with us. Audrey Jackson, the former Labour leader's daughter, Andrew Leonard Stonewall Jackson's daughter, Audrey. She was one of the secretaries.
Yeah.
And and so on. So, and I remember those days, from those early days in my political career and political life.
Okay, let's talk about Oscar Clarke's life now, because I know you're very active. And please do tell the public, how do you keep going with all of these activities? And viewers, I'm going to allow him to tell you about his current activities.
Well, these days I've been General Secretary of the PNCR for 17 years now. This is 17th year in this office. And I was brought into the office first by Mr. Desmond Hoyt, former president, former leader of the party. He asked me to become General Secretary because, under the party's constitution, the General Secretary could be chosen by the leader
Yes.
of the party. And so he asked me to become General Secretary, and I agreed back then. And I've remained there since. I worked after Mr. Hoyt, with Mr. Corbyn, and now with Mr. Granger,
Okay.
as the leaders of the party with whom I worked. So I've been there for 17 years. But in addition to being General Secretary of the party, these days I do a lot of church work, because I'm a member of the Anglican Diocese in Guyana, and in that capacity, I've held several positions in my church, as well as in the Diocesan Council. I'm a member of the Diocesan Council. I've been a member of the Diocesan Council for many years. And I'm also president of the Anglican Men of the West Indies, a position I was elected into in 2013. But before that, I was also president of our own diocesan organization, which is the Brotherhood of St. Andrew. You see, before the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, there was the organization of men in the Anglican Church used to be in another grouping called the Men's Guild.
Okay.
We came out of the Men's Guild. We adopted the Anglican Men of the West Indies now 11 years ago. I mean, the Brotherhood of St. Andrew. We adopted Brotherhood of St. Andrew 11 years ago. And so this is the 11th year of the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, which was the successor organization to the Men's Guild.
Okay.
And I've been president for the last 4 years. So this year is my last year as president of the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, because under the Constitution, you can only have two-year terms.
2 years.
This is my 4th year.
Okay.
So this year, my 4th year.
All right.
This is also my 2nd year as president of the Anglican Men of the West Indies. And in that organization, you can also have 4 years. Our next annual meeting is going to be taking place in October in the Bahamas. Last year we met in Jamaica, and the previous year it was in Guyana. So, so I do a lot of work among the men of the church, men of the Anglican Church, there's not just me, but we have a council that is elected, and we have a lot of seminars and training sessions and meetings and outreach work and so on, which we do from time to time. So I do a lot of that work as well. So in addition to being General Secretary of the party, I do a lot of that work.
You have the, yes, and you do have the energy to do so, sir. Let's come back to the People's National Congress reform for a bit. The veterans of the party, and I'm talking about not necessarily the people that we see every day, not necessarily our leaders, but there are some people who are concerned that the PNCR has over the years lost its identity, of course, because of there was the partnership, that's Partnership for National Unity. We became one of five, and then now there's been a coalition. There's now a coalition government. Is Oscar Clarke concerned about the PNCR losing its identity or being forgotten at all?
Not really, Malika. Let me tell you, the PNC, now PNCR, is an organization that is rooted in the ordinary masses of people in Guyana. It has always been, and it continues to be. Its organizational structure is such that, it runs the gamut of the country, the whole country, from what we call the basic unit level, right up. There's a constitution which is very clear. We run from the basic unit level right up to the Congress, which is now biennial. And in the early days of the party, Congresses used to be annual Congresses, and we had them in various locations throughout the country, various regions. In recent times, since we became biennial, we haven't had Congresses in other parts of Guyana, only in Georgetown, in Region 4. But Congresses have been held in the past annually, but we're biennial now. Now, I don't know how long we'll be biennial. My own view is that we might decide to make it triennial. But because, as you know, we're doing constitutional reform right now.
Yes.
And in that constitutional reform, there are a number of things that we are looking to strengthen the democratic nature of the party. For example, we are seeking to ensure that the party moves in the election of its leadership to one man, one vote, one member, one vote. That is going to be a departure from what takes place now, because at the present time, delegates come to elect their leaders. But we want to move it to members, the actual members, directly electing the leader of his or her choice. In other words, voting for, not necessarily going to be, but remember that it's in a democratic setting. It is the person who gets the majority of votes nationally that will win the leadership in each area of leadership. That is the party leader, the party chairman, party vice chairpersons, party's treasurer, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the developments that that's taking place within the PNCR at the moment. And that could only help to strengthen the PNCR rather than weaken it. In other words, notwithstanding the fact that we have joined together with other parties at the governmental level, at the political level, we remain a strong and vibrant political party. And we are looking forward to making this party even stronger. As I said, with constitutional reform and with things that we are trying to do to ensure that members have a stronger connection with the party, even as we go forward.
All right, sir. As we have to prepare to wrap up today's program, what would Oscar Clarke, the awardee, Oscar Clarke, the political veteran, Oscar Clarke, the General Secretary, because and I'm calling all of these things because you're a well-achieved citizen, a productive citizen in society. What would you like to see coming from this new coalition government?
I would like to see the government of Guyana, working closely with the people of Guyana at every level. In other words, this must be a people's government, ensuring that whatever you do, wherever it has to be done, that the people become involved in what you're doing. And I think that that is the way forward. If we keep close to the people, if we work with the people, if we get advice from the people, in other words, we mustn't think that we know what's going on. We must be advised by these people who voted for us and who keep us in, who are the members of society. And let me tell you, I believe very, very strongly that the people have many of the answers. If we listen carefully, we get the answers from the people, because they have had to live through what they're talking about. And when they talk to you, they speak to you from personal experiences. If you listen carefully, you're going to be able to be advised by them, and you're going to make decisions which are going to be in their interest and the general interest of the country at large. So my view is that we must work very closely with the people, and once we do that, the sky is the limit.
Will Oscar Clarke be giving his, and then this is without an appointment, whether appointed or not, can we expect the usual advice or a word here or there from Oscar Clarke to the new government on whatever level you can?
As long as I have breath and life and breath, God continues to give me health and strength, I would be prepared to give the same advice, help that I've been giving in the last 50 years. As a national awardee, I have a duty, I even higher duty, to want to be able to do that, because my country has awarded me.
Okay.
And I believe that that gives me even a greater sense of responsibility to ensure that, you know, the advice that I have, for whatever it's worth, is proffered at every turn, wherever it is required. So for me, yes, I am prepared to continue to work and serve as I have done in the past, you know, in my own humble way. Because a lot of people say, oh, they didn't know about Mr. Clarke, they didn't know that he was around so long.
Oh.
But you know, as I indicated to you, Malika, I have been Minister of Government.
Yes.
I have been the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament. I have been a High Commissioner and Ambassador of Guyana. I have functioned in all of these positions. And in all of these positions, I have sought to be humble and polite. And so this award doesn't go to my head, you know, even though I'm very appreciative of it. It doesn't go to my head.
Thank you very much, sir. Well said. Viewers, unfortunately, this is where we have to put a wrap on things for today's program. I'd like to thank the General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. Of course, you heard about all his other achievements, and I know you haven't heard about all of them. He didn't tell you about City Hall, but we can't get to that today. He didn't tell you about his role in the BEST. Of course, that's the PNC's way of congratulating the children who every year they write the annual grade 6, national grade 6 assessment. But another time we'll have him back on. I haven't told him yet, but of course that time for the BEST awards is coming up soon, so I'll invite the entire committee back on the program to talk about that, to talk about what the People's National Congress Reform continues to do for Guyana. Also, once again, thank you very much to the First Lady who was here earlier, First Lady of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Mrs. Sandra Granger. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Join me again next time. Please be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Of course, Monday is a holiday. I know you use the holiday to party and to have fun, but be safe when you're going to do it. I am Malika Ramsey. Do join me again next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.